So you want to build your first PC, your next PC, or even you're upgrading an existing PC. So you got three choices, yeah? New parts, used parts, and what about a combination of new and used? But would you know which ones are actually okay to get as used parts? So in today's video, which is going to be essentially part 4 of our One PC to Rule Them All series, the show where I give you full authority to decide every aspect of my next PC build for 2019, I'm going to give you the pros and cons of each and also tell you exactly which PC parts is okay to get as used. Coming up, roll the intro. Hey name tags and welcome. This is Ash from HealMyTech, helping you go from newbie to techie. Before we start, take a quick second to subscribe if you're new here, enable the bell icon notification, and also if you shop on Amazon US or UK, use my affiliate links. Even you don't have to buy the exact products mentioned, but anything you do purchase will help the channel with a small kickback, so thank you for supporting the channel. And let's face it, everyone likes the brand new car smell, and who also doesn't like brand new shiny toys, especially if it's a new tech. And in our case, in about a couple of weeks, I think July 7, 2019, we're going to have the release of AMD Ryzen Gen 2, or also called AMD Ryzen 3000 series, with the 7nm microprocessor. So fantastic times coming up, and I think we're also going to get some new hardware from Nvidia, also it's rumored, and some GPUs from AMD, and nothing really from the Intel side at this price point to compete really. So exciting times altogether. Now, if you have been saving up and holding out until that comes out for you to buy brand new components of brand new tech, no one should be able to judge you, especially if 1, you live in a country where you do have brand new tech, and 2, you've got the money to spend. Unfortunately, not everyone is as lucky. There are countries whereby not only do they not have brand new parts for the new tech, but even the last generation tech, they may get only used parts and they haven't got a choice. Also, sometimes money can be a problem. If you're on a tight budget, even if you're in a first world country, you may only be able to afford used parts. Not a problem, we'll cover everything today. Now first, if this is going to be your first build, I definitely would recommend that you get everything brand new if money is not a problem. And the main reason for that would be less headache to troubleshoot issues. If you're not confident and you've not built a PC before, troubleshooting issues can be a real headache. Now, if you have to do 1, find out whether the actual component works, and 2, find out whether the actual component works within your system, that's double trouble. So you want to minimize the headache and the risk of something not working if you have brand new components. Obviously, everyone knows, except for some idiots who still think any new component cannot be dead on arrival. It can happen. Every product will have some acceptable margins of error, whereby from the production line, not everything can be tested, so you can have a defective brand new component. It can happen. But the chances for that are a lot less than with a used component, which is dead on arrival or will only work for a couple of days. And the second reason, obviously, for general peace of mind, you want to be able to return a product if you change your mind, if it's not compatible, or whatever the reason. Now let's talk about used parts. There's actually some good news if you are using only used parts. I mean, the first biggest one obviously is spending a lot less money to get a lot more performance, sometimes even more than what you would spend on brand new tech, depending on the tier that you are aiming for. The other reason, usually if it's used, sometimes it means it's an existing tech or a previous generation tech, and all the problems, hopefully, unless there was a massive problem and recall, but all the problems will have been patched, and all the components would have been massively optimized for perfect functioning. On top of that, you're going to have lots of reviews to tell you exactly what you're supposed to expect. Not going to be just like a unboxing review or day 1 review, but a long-term use review. And in fact, that might actually be counter to what I said earlier. This might actually help you to troubleshoot. Now, for example, if you knew that this card with this CPU is supposed to give you like 50 FPS on this setting and you're only getting 20 or 30 FPS, then you know there's going to be a problem, and you can try and return that if you can. And of course, if you choose a combination of part new and part used, then you can skim on the less important components, and like in a gaming computer, if that's your thing, then the GPU can be allocated for a much bigger share of the budget, which means taking your gaming from tier 1 maybe to tier 2. It's all good. But the biggest problem with a used component, there are 2 main ones. The first is that there is usually no guarantee behind the product. Whoever you buy it from, even if they have some sort of warranty, there's a lot of conditions and they may not honor that, especially if it's a dodgy seller or a dodgy manufacturer. Also because you won't exactly know the history of its use or abuse, so you might not be able to kind of estimate its remaining lifespan. So it could die on you very soon, or if you get lucky, of course, it might actually outlast any brand new component you buy. So if you do end up buying used products, I'm not saying go out and buy them, but if you do, I'm going to give you some tips to minimize your risk factors. Now essentially there are three things I always do if I buy a used product. Number one, obviously I will always buy a reputable brand product. One example is Corsair. When I did buy their PSU, close to 3 years, the PSU stopped working. I was able to get in touch with them and I got a replacement, no problem. Had it been a less known brand or a new brand, maybe they wouldn't have very good customer service, or they would not be willing to honor their warranty. There could be all sorts of problems. So yeah, always buy reputable brands who have a reputation to maintain. Number two, apart from the reputable brand, I also would buy from a retailer or a seller that I trust, that also going to have good customer service and also going to try to honor any return policy, as long as obviously you're not doing anything dodgy. Usually with a good seller, you're going to have two types of warranty. You're going to have their own return warranty, 28 days most of the time, and also the manufacturer warranty behind that. And number three, and that one not everyone will want to do it nor would be able to do it, but I would strongly suggest you give that a go. I never buy used products anymore if I can't test them. Now you might say this is going to be difficult if you're buying from a distant seller. I'm not talking about distant sellers here. I'm talking about places like Gumtree or Craigslist or whoever you're buying from. It's usually a case that if I can't test it, I won't buy it. Sometimes the seller is going to tell me I've disassembled everything and I've sold most of the stuff. I've only got like 2 components left, or I just don't want to put the system back to test. I tell them usually, not a problem. I'm going to bring my own system, which actually is better because I want to know whether that component works in my system and is compatible with everything, which is a better scenario. And also I want to test from a cold boot. So do remember, never go and test the product, just like when buying a car. You don't want to buy a car when it's been turned on since last night or this morning. You want always a cold start or a cold boot in computer cases. The only exception to this, obviously, if you have a garage sale and you're picking a component for £1 to £5 to £10, I mean, obviously you can't resist that. You won't be able to test, but that's a risk you're gonna have to take. Okay, so now let's go through each of the components of a PC to find out which parts we can get new and which parts we can get used. First, the case. Absolutely no doubt you can buy a used case. I mean, pick up a case for free, pick up a cardboard box, reuse a previous build, or even don't use a case. Some people, like I think it's DIY trying, they build on a piece of board and then hang it on the wall. Other people won't be bothered, they're just going to build it out in the open on their desk, just screw it down and that's good to go. I would say for the most part, a case is not that important. It won't affect the performance of your PC except for aesthetics and, like airflow and maybe temperature. But if you're not that bothered with those things, then the case should not be a problem. The only exception again here, if you want some modern features, like you want some specific front ports like USB 3.0, USB Type-C, whatever it is, then you may want to get a brand new case. But then also these can be added on later on as an added card, so it's not a major issue. So definitely you can save money, get a used case. But make sure that the case is actually a standard case size and not one of those weird proprietary ones. So it should be able to fit whatever motherboards you put in there, whether it's an ITX or micro ATX or ATX, just make sure it's a standard size, and also it will fit standard size PSUs, etc. Cheap ones as well is probably going to take out some other components, so no, avoid it. Now, I did get lucky. I did buy a refurbished PSU, and you can watch my video up there where I was trying to troubleshoot my PC. Although that was a refurbished PSU, but because one, I bought from Amazon, and two, I contacted Corsair directly. It was Corsair brand. They honored it, had no problem. So I would say the refurbished factor can be a marketing gimmick, and so it depends who refurbished it. If it's a dodgy seller on eBay that just says refurbished, it could mean anything from they took it out of the system, blew off the dust, or peeled off a label, put another one. They would call that refurbished. That's not refurbished. But if you can kind of guarantee the refurbishing came directly from the manufacturer, I mean, usually that would be with some quality control. So you're good to go. You could take a risk. But again, brand and reputable seller. Number three, motherboard. For the motherboard, again, that's the most difficult component to troubleshoot if there's a problem. Not only would you have to take it out of the case, which is a huge issue, but you'll also have to breadboard and take every single component off and put other components before you can test for it. And it's quite difficult to also test. So you want to be able to return a motherboard if it's not working. Another reason is if you are buying a motherboard on a platform and you're buying a used motherboard and you know maybe the manufacturer is not producing any brand new motherboard for that model anymore, you're a bit of a problem, because if that motherboard isn't working, your only choice is going to get a used motherboard, which again may have the same issue. So no, you want to avoid motherboards used as much as possible. Get a brand new one. Number 4, the CPU. Now, processors have gone much better, much tougher. They do last much longer than they used to. And I would say it's okay to get a used processor, even if that processor has been overclocked. You won't always know how much overclocking it's done, but they usually can take a lot of beating before they die out. Exception, obviously, again, if you have an AMD processor, for example, with the pins on the processor itself, if they're bent, then make sure you inspect and you can get that returned. Otherwise, you can take a chance with the processor. You should be good to go. Number 5, the aftermarket cooler. Again, those rarely are problematic. They're usually just one main component, and then you have a fan with it. So if the fan doesn't work, no problem, you can always replace that. But I would say the cooler is also something you can get used, just as long as you inspect the cooler, it's not kind of bent or damaged. In my case, I did have one unlucky situation before where the cooler had kind of 2 hinges or brackets, and those did not work properly. So I didn't inspect it properly and was a bit loose, and I just took their word for it, but that was a bit of an issue. But for the most part, you should be okay with a used cooler because it hasn't got a lot of mechanical, no electrical parts. Now, as for the RAM, I think we're number 6. RAM, again, another component you can get used. There's a lot of people that will get some RAM which at first probably doesn't work, and then with just a bit of cleaning and resetting, unmounting, and then remount again, and it's working fine, not a problem. You can get RAM as used. Number 7, now we are dealing with the graphics card, and again, I would say it is okay to get an older graphics card. Again, if it was overclocked, you may still have some life left with it. Obviously, again, test before you buy, and that should be fine. In fact, that's what I did in my previous build, and I've showed it up there above. £200 total, or $250, and it's giving me 1080p and 60 FPS in most games. And last but not least, number 8, you have the hard drive, whether it's an SSD or a spin drive, especially if it's a spin drive, mechanical drive with a platter and a head, that you want to get new because it could have been dropped and you're going to be putting your sensitive data on there. So you want something which is going to last a long time, not something which may have been dropped. And those were my tips and my thoughts to you if you wanted to consider maybe some used and some new parts, if you want to save some money to get the most out of your build. Let me know in the comments below if I've changed your mind about getting your next parts, whether are you going to be getting new parts, used parts, or a combination of each. As for our poll, usually I ask you to vote for something to do with my build, but I don't think this video has anything to do with my next build. We already discussed this, and I am going to be trying to get some brand new parts and keeping some existing older parts. I think we did this in part 2 of our series. As usual, you know what to do down below. Leave me a like, leave me a comment, subscribe if you've not done so yet, and also do remember my Amazon affiliate links. So thank you so much for watching. As always, it was a pleasure. This was Ash from HealMyTech, helping you go from newbie to techie. Until next time, peace out.